substitute. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was not watching where I was going. Here's your papers. Hey, some neat notes you got there. Working on chemistry, are you? Or are you perhaps studying for tomorrow's exam? You know, I can help you with that. I'm Xaviér Silvershade. If you're free, why don't you swing by the library tonight? Sounds good. I'll see you there. Hey, you're here. The library's kind of empty right now. Such perfect timing. Alright, let's see what we're working with. What would you say you're struggling the most on? Oh, thermodynamics. That's not much of a shocker to anyone. It's what a lot of people got stuck on last year. Hey, don't sweat it. It's not that bad once you get the gist of it. Let's begin. Starting off, remember that thermodynamics is about energy, heat, work, and how they relate through 4 laws. First, there's the zeroth law, where if A equals B in thermal equilibrium and so does B and C, then A equals C in thermal equilibrium. Think about it like if you left 2 glasses of water in a room. The 2 glasses of water, no matter what temperature they were, they'll eventually be the same temperature as the room and each other. It's kind of like how some people can be such polar opposites and yet they can find themselves in sync, coming to terms of love. Nothing. I'm thinking out loud. Moving on. Next, there's the first law. Kind of funny how the first law is actually not the first law on the list, huh? It's that energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. Pretty simple, right? In a way, it is kind of common sense if you think about it. But anyways, that law's often written as delta U equals Q plus W, where delta U is the change in internal energy, Q is heat, and W is work. Alright, now the second law. It's all about entropy. You've probably heard that term before during lectures. It sounds fancy, but it's really just how messy things tend to get. See, the second law says that in any spontaneous process, the total entropy, or the disorder, of the universe always increases. In other words, things naturally go from order to chaos unless you put in the energy to keep them organized. Think about it like your desk after a long week of studying. No one tries to make it messy, it just happens, right? But cleaning it up, that takes work, energy, effort. That's entropy in a nutshell. Kinda poetic, actually. Everything drifts towards chaos unless someone cares enough to keep it together. Anyways, back to chemistry before I start getting too philosophical. The second law also explains why heat flows from hot to cold and never vice versa. Like when you hold a warm mug of coffee, your hands get warmer, the coffee gets cooler, and both move toward the same temperature. Kind of like in the zeroth law. That's entropy doing its thing, balancing it all out. You know, that reminds me. When we talk about heat and energy, we usually measure it as enthalpy, or delta H. It's just, yet again, another fancy way of saying the total heat content of a system. If energy flows into a reaction, that's endothermic, which is positive delta H. If it flows out, that's exothermic, negative delta H. It's kind of like breathing in a way. Inhaling takes in energy, exhaling releases it. And speaking of energy changes, that ties into Gibbs free energy, delta G. It's basically the measure that tells us whether a reaction happens spontaneously or not. If delta G is negative, it means the process happens naturally, like ice melting on a sunny day. If it's positive, then the reaction needs a push, a form of external energy. Gibbs free energy basically just indicates whether a reaction requires some external energy or not. And something you must remember is the equation connecting enthalpy, temperature, and entropy together, which is delta G equals delta H minus T delta S. And the last law is... I do hope I'm not boring you. This is pretty critical information for the exam. Right, the final law, the third law. This one's got to be one of the easiest to remember. It says that as a system approaches absolute zero, which is the coldest temperature possible, the entropy approaches zero as well. Everything slows down, atoms stop moving, no chaos, perfectly in order. It's interesting, isn't it? No matter how chaotic things get, there's this idea that if you go cold enough and still enough, everything just settles. No motion, no randomness, just calm. Kind of like the library right now. Peaceful, quiet. No entropy in sight. But in reality, absolute zero is impossible to reach. We can only get close, but never quite there. Guess some things in life better off staying just out of reach. Oh, and remember that energy is measured in joules, which is the standard unit of energy in work. And that is thermodynamics. See, not so particularly challenging after all. Would you like to take a break? We've still got quite a lot of time before the clock strikes 11. No? You're persistent, aren't you? What else are you having trouble with? You've... no clue? Well, let's have a look through all the units then. There's stoichiometry, atomic structure, acids and bases. You're probably already quite familiar with them. Their concepts are decently simple, so I trust that you'll have no trouble remembering on the exam. Let me think. Let's talk about electrochemistry. It's pretty related to thermodynamics, so it's only natural to go over it next. As you probably know, electrochemistry is basically just the study of how chemical reactions can create electricity, or conversely, how electricity can make reactions happen. You remember how this ties back to Gibbs free energy? They share the same principle, spontaneity. In electrochemistry, we look at it through the E0 cell, the cell's potential. Delta G equals negative NFE cell. So, if the potential is positive, the reaction's spontaneous, delta G is negative. But if it's the other way around, well, you'll have to give it a little bit of a push. Now, I'm sure you already know this, but electrons flow from anode to cathode. Anode oxidizes, cathode reduces. An easy way to remember that is an ox red cat. Just don't mix that up on the exam. It's an easy point loss if you do. Oh, and speaking of points, remember that every half reaction's got its own standard reduction potential, E0, listed in that long table in your notes. The more positive the E0, the stronger its pull to be reduced. So electrons flow from the lower E0 to the higher one. And when you combine half reactions, you add their potentials, and never, ever multiply by coefficients. Energy doesn't really care about how many electrons you balance. It's all about potential difference. Oh, and a quick thing before I forget. Be so very careful not to mix up the reducing and oxidizing agents. The substance that gets oxidized is the reducing agent, and the one that gets reduced is the oxidizing agent. I know, Chemistry just loves its backwards naming conventions. It's quite a lot to take in when it's all just symbols on a page, isn't it? I can practically see you zoning out already. Don't worry, it makes a lot more sense when you picture it in a real setup. Like in a galvanic cell. The reaction's spontaneous, generating current. In electrolytic cells, however, are forcing the reaction to happen using external energy. Basically the opposite of a galvanic cell. To speak of analogies, it's kind of like how in life, sometimes things just happen naturally. And sometimes you need a little spark to get them going. And now for the $1,000,000 equation that you need to remember. The Nernst equation. Hang on, let me try to find it. Oh, there it is. E equals E naught minus 0.0592 over N times the log of Q. You don't have to calculate it perfectly every time, but just remember what it means. Concentration affects voltage. Shift the balance and the self-potential shifts right with it. That's basically electrochemistry. All just energy trying to find balance. Electrons, entropy, everything. What is it? You feel ready for the exam? Glad to hear that. You know, I believe in you. You're absolutely gonna crush that exam. A little off topic, but has anyone told you how cute you look when you're confident? Really? That's surprising. I'm starting to lose hope in humanity's tastes. Oh my, are you blushing? Aw, don't hide that cute face of yours. Say, I'm glad we met. You're genuinely fun to be around. Wanna grab coffee someday? My treat. I know a great spot. They've got the perfect brews, lattes, affogato, and also milk tea with various extravagant toppings if that's to your preference. Hopefully you are a cat person because it is a Neko cafe. The workers there are really lively and I'm sure you'll enjoy your time there. You'll think about it? Wonderful. At least it's not a no. I usually hang around the library, so here's where you can find me after you've given it some thought and have time. Looks like it's getting late. I should probably wrap up before I pass out all my notes and security will have to kick me out again. Well, I'm so glad we had the chance to meet. It seems that we've got great chemistry. Good luck on your exam tomorrow, by the way. And I'll be looking forward to the next time we meet. Hey, I'm Xaviér. This is my first ever audio, and I feel like such a big nerd making the first audio about studying chemistry. I guess I did have a little bit of fun making this because it really makes me nostalgic. Takes me back to when I first learned chemistry back in high school. I really hope you enjoyed this audio. I'm quite new to this, so if you got any tips, please let me know and I would love to improve. I do plan on making more, well, maybe something less nerdy until I use Xaviér again. So, yeah. Have a good rest of your day or night. Till next we meet. It was a pleasure meeting you.